Now let's turn our attention to news abroad, if I may, because emergency aid has been arriving in Nepal over the past week or so to help those affected by the earthquake and subsequent aftershocks there. More than 7,000 people died in the magnitude of 7.8 on the earthquake scale, and more than 14,000 people are injured. One Leicestershire firefighter, Kalpesh Diyar from Birstall, has been out in the country since last Tuesday and has helped set up a medical camp west of Kathmandu. He's been telling me about what life is like out there at the moment.
Okay, it's very hot. We're on a mountainside in a remote area called Badashi, which is in the Gorkha district in Nepal. We're only about 1,400 metres.
What kind of work are you doing there at the moment?
Okay, it's mainly treating the acute injuries and following them up, and chronic conditions and primary health needs.
When you look around you, the scene that you've been working in today and since you've been out there, can you just put that into a picture for us back home so that we can kind of understand what kind of things you're seeing and what kind of things you're having to deal with?
Okay, we're in very remote villages, and most of the buildings are constructed using stonework and mud, and things have collapsed and completely collapsed, so it literally is just a pile of rubble. So the injuries are sort of crush injuries and lacerations from the corrugated iron roofs and things like that. It's quite a surreal sight. You're in such a beautiful part of the world. You see this completely devastated building, and then you see the terracing for the paddy fields and all the other crops that are growing on the hillside.
Have you ever seen anything like it in your career before?
Not terrain like this. For me personally, it's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to.
So it's a real mixture. You've got this beautiful country and yet this terrible disaster that's happened there.
Exactly. It's such a sharp contrast. This morning we woke up to a sunrise that was simply out of this world, and yet only to my left there were three buildings that were completely devastated. So yeah, it's certainly a world of contrast for me at the moment.
Talk to me about those people. I mean, what's their reaction to you being there, and you know, what's the reaction when you're able to help them in the situation that they're in?
The reaction has been absolutely fantastic. These people are such a really resilient people, and I would say the majority have never received any form of health care whatsoever. But just greeting them with open arms and a friendly face, that's just how they are. And it's a real honour to be able to treat them and help them out.
And of course, they're the lucky ones. Is it a mix of people of different ages that you've been looking after? Yes,
we've been doing from babies all the way up to 80, 90-year-old patients with various different conditions.
Now, I know you've worked with the charity Human First for a decade or so, although you say you've not been familiar with such scenes that you've had to deal with today. What's the most concerning issue for you at the moment? What's the most demanding part of the role that you're playing?
Well, Humanity First are very experienced in working in disaster zones, and a few years ago we responded to Haiti. And one of our big concerns in this instance is just the remoteness of some of the villages. Some are inaccessible by roadways, and our aim at the moment, working under the Ministry of Health and the Foreign Medical Team Coordinator, we're trying to secure a helicopter to try and fly to one of the most remote villages, a place called Lapa. And if we can get a helicopter, we can get supplies and medics up there to treat the injured there.
How are the supplies coming through? Is the aid actually reaching you and the people who need it most?
I believe so. In slow time, because obviously access is difficult. We're a completely mobile team. We've been classified as a Type 1 medical team, which is completely mobile and self-sufficient. So because of that self-sufficiency, we're able to move quite freely to wherever we feel the need. It's largely based on the information that we're gathering from locals and other members of the community.
See, I ask about aid because the UN are today saying that bureaucracy has been holding up the flow of supplies to those in need, and there are some suggestions that the government could have acted quicker with things. Is that something that you are familiar with? I mean, are you still crying out for some urgent supplies of things?
Not in my experience. The problem is, as with any disaster, the whole infrastructure is disrupted and communications are extremely hard. So I think they're doing the best they can in difficult circumstances.
How long are you going to be out there for, Kalpesh?
Typically a deployment for us is 14 days. So we're about halfway through. Our work won't stop. What will happen is we'll get a phase 2 team which will then take over from our work. There'll be a slight overlap of a few days where we can hand over information and the intelligence we've gathered. Our work will continue beyond the we're here for.
There's been a lot of debate, as I'm sure you're familiar with, whether or not the rescue efforts should continue and whether now the attention needs to be put on the injured. Are you still hopeful that survivors could be pulled alive from the rubble?
From my experience of going through various disasters over the world, yes, there's always hope. I've heard stories of people being removed from rubble piles 3 weeks after the earthquake has occurred. So there's always going to be hope, and then you will always find a couple of individuals that will be rescued 2 or 3 weeks after the incident. So some of their injuries are life-threatening. It's possible to survive 3 weeks into the earthquake.
And I know that you'll probably like to think, well, it's not about you, but you must have to stay pretty strong. I guess you and your colleagues as well. It must not only be tiring, this whole rescue, but also, it must take a lot out of you, mentally and physically, I'd imagine. How are you keeping it together? How are you staying strong at this difficult time?
Well, one is experience. I've done this many times before. But we have an extremely professional and experienced team, and everybody supports each other. I'm constantly telling everybody to drink more water and making sure they're eating properly and resting when they can. So as a team, we do look after each other really well. And the locals are very supportive as well. We've got the army here, and they've assisted us in building some of the shelters and the cleaning facilities. So liaising with the locals and having a good team is the key, I think. Personally, I do think of my family back at home.
I bet you do.
Listening to this, I'd like to say hello to them. I know my wife is being supported by the fire service and Humanity First. They're getting constant updates, so they kept well informed of what's going on here as well, which is a good thing for me. I don't have to worry about them at home.
Just lastly, as you say, you're looking after people, you're helping people with injuries, all different ages that you've been dealing with. Is there anyone who's sort of stuck out for you as a sort of defining case, or someone that you've been looking after that's really put things into perspective for you?
Just a young child with its mum, and the child reminded me so much of my own son, and it just sort of put things into perspective. He had the broadest grin, and when he's in that smile back at me, it just gives me so much hope. And I think that's the defining sort of image I'll take back with me, that despite the severe, they've endured such a horrible event, and yet this little child's just got this beautiful smile, and is being looked after. That's what matters, really.
Just an amazing man, Leicestershire firefighter Kalpesh Diyar, speaking to me over the weekend. And hopefully when Kalpesh is back, we'll be able to get him in the studio to talk more about his experiences in Nepal.